Chris, welcome to Los Angeles, back to the offices that we worked in together for so long. Glad to have you back.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. I appreciate it. Yeah, so I just wanted to stop by and just have a conversation about what we did over the 6 years that we were working together. Talk about what life was like when you first started your firm, before you got systems in place, and then what we did while we were working together and what life is like now a little bit. What can you tell us about the start of your firm before you reached out to me?
Sure. We were doing well. We had found some advertising that worked, and we were bringing in clients. I was fairly pleased with the results, but it was definitely a cap. And the cap was, it was really just me and a couple of paralegals, and we were satisfying all of our time. We weren't able to do any more. But I saw the opportunity, if we did more advertising, I could bring in a ton more work, but there was no scalability in the office. I wasn't able to take on more work. And I remember reaching out to you, we had a mutual friend, and kind of discussing that problem and finding out that maybe there was a solution to the scalability.
Okay, you're an immigration attorney, right?
Correct.
And your background was you had been a government attorney, an ICE prosecutor, right?
I had worked for ICE here in Los Angeles and back in Miami for about 6 years. I'd gotten the expertise in how to run or how to do immigration law. Mm-hmm. Decided to take that to the other side, be a private practice attorney, open my own law firm, and there kind of started figuring out, getting thrown into the fire, how to run a business.
Okay, so when you started, how were you running things? On the practice side, you did have some immigration software, and that helped you keep track of your cases. But what did you have to keep track of leads and sales and that sort of thing?
So doing the work, as long as we had a certain number of cases and less, we could do the work. The big challenges for us, one, because of the model of the business, is collecting money was very difficult, figuring out who owed us, who didn't, being able to bring in leads and track where they were in a sales process. Were they brand new and hot? Were they sitting around for a while and cold? Had they showed up for scheduled consults? Tracking that was really difficult. And then ultimately, all of it was capped by, one or two people can only do so much work.
Yeah. And if I remember correctly, you were really just tracking almost everything on spreadsheets.
Of course. Yeah, Excel was my best friend. We did everything in there. And it worked for a limited amount of time. Mm-hmm. And so as long as you have a couple hundred cases or something like that, it's fine. But if you have any desire to go beyond that, you're just going to get lost.
Okay. So you reached out to me, and I talked to you about the power of a CRM to keep track of all of your leads and your clients and all of your communication between people in the firm versus out to them, the back and forth communication, and then the power of marketing automation to keep in touch with those leads. And so we put in a number of different systems along the way. What would you say are some of the most helpful things that we did?
If you back up to the beginning of the sales cycle, one of the best things was when we put money out into advertising, potential clients responded to that, being able to maybe more efficiently take those potential clients, however many they are, if they're 10 or 20 or 100, we were able to really efficiently take that 100 and try to get them actually into the door for consults, through the first time we spoke to them, to following up with them, to if they missed their scheduled consult, following up with them again, really getting as much juice out of those 100 potential clients as possible. That was one of the most helpful things.
Yeah, at the time, you were really just retaining like the hottest leads, and you were retaining a decent number of clients, but it seemed as if, if I want more clients, I need to generate more leads. But then when we broke things down into the different individual steps of the sales process, we could see people dropping off, right? Mm-hmm. So what were the major steps of your sales process?
Okay, so if you put out an advertisement, whatever the budget is, let's call it $1,000. You threw $1,000 at a certain advertisement, and you got 20 people responded to it. In the beginning, we might see 5 of those in the office and retain 2 or 3 of them. What was great on that same $1,000 investment and the same 20 people that came through, being able to follow up with them in a really efficient way, maybe now we were getting 10, 11, 12 of them to come into the office and retaining 5, 6, or 7 of them. And so with the exact same ad spend, we were doubling or tripling the amount of paying clients that were coming in. That was, so with the same spend, doubling or tripling what we were doing with it.
Yeah, I have the stats here actually that over a 6-year period from 2015 through all of 2020, we generated 107,986 leads, scheduled consultations with 75,492 of them, and we actually did 48,428 consults. So 48,000 people showed up, and then a total of 20,964 clients retained.
Well, those are giant numbers.
Yeah.
Insane giant numbers. And that goes to the scalability down the line. But it shows what the funnel, that sales funnel, we threw advertising dollars out and got 100,000 people to respond. 75,000 actually set appointments. 50,000 showed up, and 20-some thousand actually retained. Yeah, so you're getting as much out of those 100,000 as possible versus just continuing to spend to get more and more.
Yeah, and I think another reason that we were able to retain a higher percentage is that we stayed in touch with the folks, even if they didn't come in for that consult, or even if they came in for the consult but didn't retain. We still stayed in touch with them. Why do you think that was helpful?
I think if we took those same 100,000 leads, if we hadn't had those systems in place and stayed in touch with people and followed up and tried to bring everything we could out of those 100,000, I don't think we would have retained 20,000.
Right.
I think we would have retained 5,000 or 6,000. And so on that initial push, if you throw the advertising out, answer the phone, and hope to see them, you're probably going to get 5% of those people. But through following up and really working those 100,000, you're able to get it to 20% of the people.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the focusing on the leads you've already got probably took us from somewhere around 5 to 20%.
Okay. And so over time, you spent more and more on advertising, right? As you were able to handle more clients, retain more clients. What do we do? Did we do anything to hone in on the best advertising?
Yeah, so again, you got a marketing budget, whatever it is, $1,000 or $100,000. You don't know what's working until you know what's working. And we saw that several times. Things that we thought were no-brainers maybe didn't do all that great. Some things that we were guessing on did wonderful, and then some things performed as you'd think. But we knew by tracking each individual advertisement and calculating the dollars and the ROI on all of those things, and did that through a very methodical tracking process.
Yeah, I think that's really key. I think a lot of law firms, they spend a lot on advertising, but they don't necessarily know what's paying off or what is and what isn't paying off. We had some surprises along the way, right?
Like trying the same message on 2 different radio stations, getting huge call volumes on both, but then learning that one retained better than the other.
Yeah.
And so if you're just going by maybe a phone call, like how many phone calls did I get? You'd say they did exactly the same, or very close. But it was funny, some people that called from one web radio were not retaining while the others were.
Yeah.
So you learn those little things the further down the funnel you track it.
Yeah, that was crazy. The exact same ad running on 2 different stations that supposedly had the same demographics. One of them you got a 31% ROI on it, and the other one you got 411%.
Yeah, so if now you're talking about where am I going to spend that marketing budget, obviously it's going one direction.
What would you say, it's expensive some people think it's expensive to systematize things. You got to buy the software, and then there's, the cost of implementation and everything else. But what's the big picture here? Is it just a true cost? Is it an investment? What do you think?
I've said this about multiple parts of the firm, is the first time you drop money on whichever one of these parts, it's scary.
Yeah.
So whether it's hiring an associate attorney, that's scary. Putting money into advertising, systematizing, all of those things, there is some upfront cost too. But I have always become more profitable when I've hired another associate attorney. I've always been more profitable when I spent on advertising properly, and 100% been profitable by investing in systems.
Yeah. So What has it done to your personal life to have systems in place?
The systems are what allow me to scale. So they've taken a cap of where I could go with the firm and increased that cap, not infinitely, but way high. And so that has allowed me to invest in other parts of the firm, whether it be in associate attorneys or more advertising or office space, whatever it is, and to find good people to replace most of the jobs that I've done. I still do the jobs that I enjoy most, but I'm able to farm out the rest of the jobs to good people that can maybe do it better than I can.
Mm-hmm.
And what that does is it buys me time. Either time to reinvest in the firm in the places that I like to do more, or time with my family, time to focus on hobbies like running and traveling and things like that. So it has bought me time.
Okay. So how many hours were you working back in the beginning before we invested in systems
Sure.
versus now?
But when I was the lawyer, the paralegal, the admin, all day, all night, I don't know the hours, but over 80 hours a week easily. 5 in the morning till 10 at night oftentimes. Slowly that came down when I was just the lawyer, maybe 80 hours a week. And now that I'm doing the things I want, first of all, I do them whenever I want, but you know, a week is certainly under 40 hours, and it's whatever I want it to be.
That's fantastic. So do you always work in the office here, or?
You know, even before the pandemic, I had stopped doing all the hours in the office. A lot of the jobs I like to do, I can do over the phone or through the computer. And so I was doing them remotely already, either from my home or on vacation and on travel. But yeah, the office, it's great to come here. It's good to see people. You can't really replace interacting individually with people, but it doesn't have to be every day all the time.
Yeah. So it's basically giving you location independence.
Totally. I can do most of the job from anywhere in the world.
All right. What are the jobs that you hated the most that now you don't have to do?
I wouldn't say that I hated any part of the job.
Come on.
I know. I love the business aspect. That's my favorite.
Uh-huh.
It's not that I hate other parts. I have favorites. I enjoy finding efficiencies. That's really my favorite thing. So pulling away from the day-to-day legal grind is something that I was happy to get away from. I know a lot of lawyers really like to be in that legal grind, and I could have easily chosen to go that direction.
Sure.
But I chose less of that and more of the business side and finding those efficiencies to run the business from a macro level and let other people dive into the details of the legal stuff and the administration and the HR, things like that.
Gotcha. So back in the beginning, you had, was it 17 employees when we started? Did you even have 17 of your own employees?
It may have been less than 17, but maybe in that ballpark, 12 to 17, somewhere in there, 15.
Okay. And how many do you have now?
Worldwide,
Yeah.
we have about 180.
That's awesome.
And it's always changing, always growing and changing in different directions, but somewhere just south of 200.
Yeah. And I mean, you're doing a lot of really good work for the families you serve. How does it feel to have such an incredible impact?
The mission has never changed. The mission was always to do good work and to impact people's lives. What's really great about systematizing that is if you're good at impacting people's lives, now you can do it a lot more.
Yeah.
And so we've put in systems in place and good people in place where we can impact thousands of lives every year.
Yeah. And did you ever think, when you went out to start your law firm, did you ever think that you would have this kind of impact on this many clients?
Never. I thought we'd get, if we were lucky, 10 to 20 clients a month and do a good job for each of those people. And now to see literally hundreds and hundreds of people every month and, you know, coming back in, smiling faces, thank yous, things like that, it's incredible.
Okay. What would you say to someone who's thinking about investing in something with my firm to systematize their law firm, and maybe they're a little bit concerned about the cost involved or the time commitment up front, because there is an upfront commitment of time to get systems in place, right? Sometimes you have to slow down in order to speed up. What would you say to somebody who's considering doing that but a little bit worried about doing it?
I would say it's the same with most investments. There is a sacrifice up front, whether it's putting money away in your 401k or a down payment on a house. It's a significant upfront commitment. But when you see your 401k growing to hundreds of thousands of dollars for retirement, or the value of your home growing exponentially, the same thing will happen to a practice, because once you systematize it, there's no cap anymore. And so the ceiling you're running into now vanishes, and that investment will pay multiple times over.
Yeah. And all of the overwhelm that they have maybe with having all of these jobs to tend to and the firm completely running around themselves.
Yeah,
Does that go away?
I think you can make choices. Systems allow you to choose the time that you want, because you can now delegate that to other places, the money you want. Really, it puts optionality into your life. You now can control things that maybe you couldn't control before, because there just wasn't enough time or resources to do it before.
So it helps you manage your time and resources a whole lot better.
Totally.
Well, thanks so much for having this chat with me today.
Thanks for coming and seeing me again.
Yeah, man.